Why do we learn? What do we learn? And how do we learn? These are some of the questions I wanted to answer when I started this podcast. On this show, we interview a diverse set of learners from the 21st century. On each episode, we try to understand how they acquired a set of skills in a unique and innovative way. In the process, we hope to uncover a new understanding of learning as conceptualized and imagined by the guests on our show. Today's guest, Lovish, is someone whose work I came across on LinkedIn, and his journey really inspired me. Here's a little bit about him before we get started. Lovish is currently a research scholar at IIT-B Monash Research Academy. He's working in the field of circular economy in the context of food supply chains. He was born in Rajasthan. Prior to getting into his doctoral studies, Lovish completed an MSc, a Masters of Science in Environmental Studies and Resource Management from the Terry School of Advanced Studies. And before that, he also completed a BSc, a Bachelor of Science, and a B.Ed. It was an integrated degree where he specialized in chemistry and mathematics education. Up to date, he has written 35 research articles, which is quite impressive for someone his age. He is presented in local and national conferences. He actively volunteers. And a little bit more about him is that he has majorly worked in the areas of sustainable development, spanning across various facets of environment and education and their nexus. So, Lavish, the reason I wanted to interview you was because at such a young age, you've achieved so much in the field of research and education. So, before we get started into your academic and professional journey, I just want to understand a little bit about who was Lovish as a student growing up. What were the things you were curious about when you were at school? What did you like doing outside school? So, some stories from your childhood to start off with.
Yeah, so my schooling has been from the district of Hanumangarh. It's the school was Maharishi Dayanand Public Senior Secondary School, so it was a Hindi medium schooling. So our schooling, in the sense that it was known for our school was particularly known for the discipline that it had in the whole city. So our school was one of the most disciplined schools in the city. So that the values that that was inculcated starting from the first class, till the end of the schooling journey, I completed in a single school only. So that really had a huge impact on my life throughout. Particularly when I talk about it, how in each class you have been told and you have been guided what you should do, what you should not do at that age, and you are particularly trained to be disciplined in every aspect of life. I think that's something that helped me a lot. Further, regarding school stories, uh, beyond school, we used to have some, dance or singing or those kind of stuff. More or less in cultural programs, I used to have those stand-up comedy or speeches. Those were my other areas of interest. Our school was that in that sense was not more culturally oriented. Means there will only be, let's say, 2-3 events in the whole year. But yeah, whenever they would be, I was always keen to participate. So I did my first stage performance, I think, in second or third class. So from there on, I had that willingness that if there is some opportunity, I have to go to stage and speak. I mean, however I do or however I perform, but then what matters is that you are there facing the people. I think that really at the starting it used to be a bit fairy, but then it became a passion kind of thing that you have to be on stage, and then I think from there only teaching has also a similar kind of run. Where you have to be on stage and teach students. So that inclination also came from there only. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I feel like I've seen a lot of your presentations, and I feel like you have a natural skill for communicating ideas. And I wonder if it goes back to those early sort of, stage performances that you had back then. But, growing up in India, you've chosen BSc, which is like a more pure science. Like a lot of us are encouraged if we do take up the science stream to pursue engineering. So what was your thinking in grade 11 and 12, behind choosing like the pure sciences or chemistry as a field of study in college, and why not something that's more applied like engineering?
Okay. Yeah. So basically, it's a bit related to family as well and my personal interest as well. So as I told that my basic interest was in teaching from always. And then second thing, my elder brother, has been in engineering. He's a software engineer currently placed in Bangalore. So I, I I had seen his journey. I was inspired by it as well. But I had I had a wish that I have to go in the teaching field. So for that purpose, you are either from engineering also that path emerges. But my more interest was in the when this course was introduced. So we were the first batch of integrated BSc B.Ed of the University of Rajasthan. So when this was introduced, my mother told me, and I realized that this is the perfect fit for to pursue my goals. So because it has that blend of uh, you know uh, science and education that I really wanted to pursue. I always imagine myself in the position that I'm always teaching someone while learning also. So when I mean, there is sometime you have some audience to listen, but at the early stage when you are in, let's say, 10th, 11th or 12th, you don't have an audience to say. But you imagine that if you would be in the place of your teacher, what would you be telling the student? How will you be teaching it? So that urge always led me to incline towards teaching. I gave JEE main. I took the exam of JEE mains just to check whether how is my skills in general, because they are all testing 11 12 knowledge. So I got it. I got qualified in JEE mains, not in JEE advanced. But the whole idea was not to go into engineering, but just to test my skills. Yeah. So it was pretty sure from quite a bit starting that from for the if you want to pursue the teaching process, then pure science and research is the way out.
Got it. And like, in terms of the pure sciences, right? I feel like there's so much to learn. I like one thing we have in common, Lovish, is I also did my B.Ed and I used to teach in the classroom for 2 years. And I was just one thing I realized is while I was teaching, I found a newfound love for these different subjects. I didn't have a background in science, but because I was teaching grade 5, I had to learn science while I was teaching it. Then I learned about the periodic table. I learned about how the human body works. And so what did you find interesting about some of these subjects like physics, chemistry, biology, math, and why were you so interested to study it at such a young age?
So one thing that also aggravated my interest in teaching was the even in the when I got into integrated B.Ed program. One of our teacher, Dr. Mohit Dixit, he was amazing teacher. I mean, he used to apply innovative methods in class, not naming them. So we are in the first year. We are just learning how to, in B.Ed, the primary course, first courses are basic psychology, learning, and all those courses. And at that time, you are not told that these are different teaching methods. But at that time, he used to apply with us those teaching methods. And in second or third year, we later got to know that what he was applying was some method of this sort, which we're not aware of, but that was already applied to us. So he has that instinct of teaching so well, engaging whole class had a huge respect for him. So that is one part where you always uh, keep motivated I was motivated for teaching. The second part, regarding the interest in subjects, definitely a straightforward path that comes after 10th is, when you get good grades is, in our context, is mostly taking science. Now we have two options, maths or biology. Then in that context, my more interest was naturally in mathematics, because I like that very much. So maths was a general inclination for me. But then um, what I really liked about those subjects is that we are really developing our thinking process, and when we are simultaneously learning to teach also. So this is something. that is just, you imagine a student who is always imagining to to teach while learning, and then getting into graduation, he's able to do those things quite simultaneously. So those things always were there, and those questions, putting things into perspective, and how to communicate science, that had really interested me, because even in our college we had a program called Parishkar Pathshala, which was a volunteering program for teaching underprivileged students in Jaipur area. So we had that understanding that how those students need a different set of a different way of teaching beyond the conventional one. So uh, you know for me, it was also about how to communicate the knowledge in what I have learned in 11th 12th per se, to the students in a more effective way going forward. So that instinct, always like always planning out in a different way, following basic principle as well as some innovative approaches to teach. So those always interested me, and that's how, because those subjects I had already learned. So as part of the obvious flow that comes in. So I think that's how it kept me over for that field. Yeah. However, now I have changed my field a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think like teaching and research are two fields that really feed into each other in a lot of ways, right? You have to be so knowledgeable about the field you are teaching, but I think having a like a leg or a hand in research helps you teach better. Like when you were in the B.Ed course, Lavish, like what was, if you had to define your teaching philosophy or your ideal classroom? That's something that I did in my B.Ed course. So what is your teaching philosophy, or what is your ideal learning environment as a learner or teacher?
For me, it's, I think, always two-sided. Means both student and teachers come to an interaction point, and then there is always student teacher. In the present times, what we see is students have everything, right? And they have access to smarter teachers, smarter equipment, and smarter devices than us. What really we have to do in the current education system is to really facilitate the process.
Mm,
Means equip them with the right resources, help them with their time management, and help them with the kind of things they want to do. Like, for example, if I'm teaching a subject, what kind of project should I give to the student so that it interests them in a way, or they should, if they come up with their own, how should I help in that field, how they can do better. The idea is to give them a track, give them the show them the path, and help them to stay on the path. uh, if the student is really willing to learn, he'll go beyond what you teach, he will go beyond the curriculum, and that's the exact goal. So limiting to curriculum is not the key. What really interests the student, and what really can he can think his career in terms of. I was recently in my neighborhood. I was having this conversation with my one of my he was a junior. So he's now dreaming of, let's say, a future in gaming industry, for example. Now this is quite new. As a teacher, when you're teaching certain subjects, uh, beyond that teaching role, you have to be a mentor, and then you have to guide how does these areas link with what you are currently doing, and then how can you expand this to this level. So all these issues, I think, really matter, and uh, I think knowledge is out there. If student you make student interested to learn, I think that's what really would make the difference.
got it. And like, yeah, I think you really put it well. I think that with so much information available, facilitation is really important, in addition to just teaching them what the curriculum is. And I think that's a very like refreshing, progressive sort of way to look at teaching. Now, after you finish your BSc, B.Ed, rather than jumping into teaching immediately, you decided to pursue an MSc, and that was in environmental studies and resource management. And I was reading the article that you had shared with me about the circular economy and food supply chains. So why the environment? Why did you think you were interested in research? That's question number one. And why did you want to focus on the environment and food supply chains in your MSc
Yeah.
program?
Okay. That is an interesting story, though. So first, I hadn't. It was not the case that I hadn't done teaching. But I was doing that simultaneously in remote platforms, like there are virtual platforms available where you could teach. So I
Okay,
had joined various online platforms where I used to, teach students.
got it.
Specifically in the COVID times where everything was remote.
Mhm.
So I also skilled up myself in that part. Regarding research, so it started in the first year of integrated BSc B.Ed program only. So what happened was the guide I was talking about, Dr. Mohit Dixit. So uh, he instigated the my progress. He instigated me to research. Basically, what happened was I was giving a speech. I said no, I'm interested in always uh, coming up on the stage and speaking. So it was 15th August. I joined the college on 3rd August, and the 15th August program was there, and I gave a simple speech. And we were only 4 or 5 people giving out speech there. So and sir saw that he's a new student, and he's courageous enough to do that in the quite early stage, to go on the stage and speak to the audience he doesn't know. So then he asked me whether you would like to. There is a international conference happening in Jaipur. International Guest and Writing. So would you like to write something for that purpose? I said we can try, because obviously I didn't have that. Had the willingness to always do something. I can't be free, so I thought let's do it. And then it was quite a different topic, like it was on tourism industry, or we just wrote a simple write up, an abstract or something, and then we got selected, accepted into that conference, and then we presented our work. From there on, as many as conferences came up, so we just started something, applying. And when you get into this, you also get to know what how other people are doing it. So
Mhm.
obviously, my first write-up, I would say, was the worst. Obvious, and that is obvious because when I'm going there for the first time, I don't know what are the expectations, but they require just some guidance from my mentor, and then I wrote it up. Later on, I started actively participating in the national and international conferences, along with my guide and other professors also. So that thing. So within, like you would imagine, within 5 months of joining college, I had attended around 5 conferences also. So some were national, some were international. So now that led me to you know uh, that because those discussions, those areas imbibed me, like how to do research, how to approach a topic if you want to really study it, like what is the correct way of research, those, how to create knowledge and so on. So those things started getting in. And now, as soon as we really realized it, and we kept on going forward, we realized that uh, after 2 3 years, when I look back, because we were just randomly applied for the conference, whatever were notifications was coming to us. After 2 3 years down the line, when I was in third year, I realized that most of my work till date has been either on the environmental or sustainability side, or on education side. Reason for that was because conferences were happening on those topics only. So now I had gained good amount of knowledge also through those conferences, as well as my own work. So that led me to choose environmental science as a topic for future. Now there are always two options. So let's say if environmental science doesn't work, then I'll go more deep into education part, means educational technology. I had good publications in that also, educational technology. So so those two areas were always there. So as a matter of science, so I try to go towards environmental studies. So I thought I have to choose this, because this is something that is really pressing, and I really want to work towards this. Really, at that time, I was really working on air pollution side of things. So how does, for example, we started with the analysis of pollution in Jaipur. how during Diwali the pollution used to surge, and then other issues that emerged due to pollution. And if we compare to WHO guidelines, how much we are, behind, like 6 times, 7 times more pollution. And Indian guidelines also, if you see, that were also being breached. Uh, so in that sense, we realize that air pollution is a big problem and have to work towards it. Throughout my, after that, and throughout my masters also, I chose the subjects which were more aligned to air pollution. So, for example, I chose wherever the choice came. So, for example, I chose subjects like satellite meteorology. I chose subjects like aerosol science, air quality management, and so on, as the electives. So these electives were when these electives are based on upon your interest, and then those interest was in air pollution side of things. Even while giving my PhD interviews, most of the places I applied for air pollution related projects only. But I think things had a different turn. So uh, yeah, so I think uh, I mean, then I went into, because I was also partly air pollution, then also links with uh, I did a life cycle analysis sort of study, which was which turned which made us aware about the issues of climate change, and also about more so different kinds of emissions that we have. Thereon, you have those issues also coming into picture. How can we really solve them is something called circular economy, in which resources are in continuous flow and we don't just make and dispose, but we really uh, you know keep them in the loop, using R's: reduce, reduction, reuse, recycling, repair, and so on. So those things came by me, and then I just went into that. Yeah.
Got it. Very, very interesting because I now I see like a connecting thread between your exposure to your mentor, Mr. Dikshit, and the opportunity of conducting research at an undergraduate stage. I think you mentioned it earlier as well. It's not a very common experience for a lot of students. So I think that exposure, then working on environmental science and education technology while you were doing your masters. But if you had to explain research to someone that doesn't understand research, I feel like understanding scientific research is a very important critical thinking skill. So, and terms like qualitative, quantitative, correlation, causation, these were terms I just learned when I was doing my masters as well. So, how do you conduct research when you do like your masters? What is research and how can a layperson understand research? You can give me
Okay.
an example of one topic you studied in particular.
Okay. Okay. For research for us is like generation of knowledge. So there are different paths to generate knowledge. There is already knowledge explosion happening currently. But how does research comes in the first place from the problem that you observe around you? For example, you are let's say we were talking about air pollution. So we are experiencing air pollution around us. Now, let's say you want to know what are the reasons behind air pollution in your area.
Mm,
That can be a good research question if the study has not been done in your area till now. So that is called a research gap. This area has a different geography than others, and this area has a different climatic conditions than others, and this area has not been studied for. Uh, Culture also plays a role. So in that sense, this study, the air pollution attribution study, has not been done for this area. Therefore, I want to take this up. Now, for that purpose, there are different methodology for causal analysis. So, how would you analyze that? What is causing air pollution in your area?
mm,
There are many methods. For example, if you analyze emissions in general in your area, you take some air samples in different parts, different locations of your region, and then analyze them, do some laboratory experiment and analyze them, or what are the key pollutants in them. And then once you analyze the pollutant, you do some sort of uh, uh, principal component analysis, or any multivariate methodology analysis that is prescribed for that purpose. Then you identify that these are the key contributors
mm,
to, because this kind of pollutant or this kind of pollutant combination is only possible through this source. So there is a source inventory that we have. So then, therefore, these are the reasons of air pollution in my area. Now, if you see this process, what has actually happened? You started with a problem. Now you identified your region to study area. Sometimes it may be a geographical region. Sometimes it may also be a thematic region, which means some conceptual study that has not been done earlier, some ideas that have not been explored earlier. Then you come to if this is a problem, this is my objective, and this is the area. So what should I how should I proceed? That how should you proceed is something called that methodology. Now that methodology, in this case, it was a laboratory experiment. In some cases, it may be interviews. For example, if you're going to a business sector and you're going to ask, let's say I'm working in food business, so I'm asking managers to what do you feel is the critical problem when you are trying to adopt sustainability measures in your systems. For example, you're trying to reduce emissions, or you're trying to uh, automate systems. You're trying to use modern technologies. What are the issues that you're facing? Some will tell me that no, cost is an issue for me because it is highly costly. Some will say cost is okay, but the other issues is that our team or our employees are not oriented that much towards that vision. So that also creates a problem. Then you have some people talking about in our country there is a lack of R&D, and due to which we are not able to adopt the right kind of technology that we need, although we have the money to spend on it. So there are different kinds of reasons that you see. So this kind of issue that you determine is through interviews for a different kind of study. So this is a different now these interviews are a part of qualitative methods, while I talk about laboratory, that is generally quantitative. Similarly, whenever you decide a methodology, or you decide the steps to proceed. Literature review plays a key role in that sense. That how previous study did that to solve such a problem. Whatever I told you was something that was done in the previous literature, and that's how I, maybe in a different context, but my context is different, but it has a similar kind of idea for that, which was used in previous literature, or I can extend the idea of the previous literature also to apply in my study. So that is something where literature review comes into the picture to identify previous methods, to identify research gaps. That this area has been untouched, so this is a research gap. Similarly, from methodological perspective, I told you qualitative, quantitative. Now it depends on the information, the type of information that you want to gather. If you want to gather, let's say one other example can be of we also analyzed wind speeds in the region of Delhi NCR. So how surface wind speeds over the period of over the period of 2 decades or 3 decades are we analyzed that it was declining. Surface wind, it means the air flowing at the 2 meter height. And now this comes from the fact that now this was an interesting work, because what we realized was sometimes a common perception that people we hear from anecdotes that previously climate was used to much more friendly, we had much more openness, so to say. So if we talk about villages or something, so there are more open air flowing, and then there is no there is higher breathability and so on. So from this idea, we started checking what is happening from 1981 to 2020 in Delhi NCR region. Wind speed data is easily available on different different data sets that NASA provides, for example, satellite based data sets. Now we got into this problem and we realized that it was obvious that it was declining over the period of time. Now why it was declining? Then we got into we decided we first were having different thoughts. Then we went to our professor asking that why is this the wind speed is declining, because many studies reported stealing earlier, or some studies also reported that in some areas wind speed is fast, is rapidifying also. So different observations. Then we went to professor and asked, so it might be because of the urban structure that is there,
Hmm.
because the built up environments. So we analyzed, the built up area that was being, so we realized that, built up area is continuously increasing, and that is leading to that is creating obstruction for the airflow. So that's how, you find that there is a decrease. That is because there is a decrease in the wind speed. This was a study which was also published in Journal of Earth System Sciences in last year only.
Wow, I think that's such a beautiful way of explaining how you don't have any knowledge, and by understanding the problem better, you figure out what new knowledge you need. So it's really building on what you already know. And I feel like literature reviews is such an underrated way to understand the world. Like whenever you have an opinion or want to learn about something, there must be someone else in the world that has had the same question. So I think what literature reviews do is it helps you understand how humans have studied the same topic in the past, so that what you are doing now, you're not doing something that has already been done. And I feel like what is important is what you also mentioned about local context. Like air pollution can have different things in different parts of the world. But you can't take an air pollution study that is done in Boston, in the US, and immediately apply it to a place like Mumbai or New Delhi, because our problems, our population is so different. So you need original research in the local context to answer that question. So, really, really insightful, Rovish. And I think for someone listening, you get me very excited about research. I think research is just a way of looking at the world. When someone is reading a nonfiction book about a particular topic, in a lot of ways, they are reading research, presented in a more accessible manner. So I feel like reading research papers is something that, we all need to really develop as a skill set, no matter what profession we are in. So now, after your MSc, Lovish, you decided you got the Junior Research Fellowship and you cleared your NET exam, or is that the set or the NET exam?
Yeah, NetJRF is combined.
Correct. So, like another story, I also did my NET GRF and I got it for my education degree in MA. I didn't pursue my PhD degree, but I got a NET GRF in 2019. And I think it's an amazing scheme by the government where if you do a master's degree, you have to give an exam called the National Entrance Exam or the National Entrance Test. If you clear that exam, you have an eligibility to teach as an assistant professor in any college that is teaching that subject you studied in your master's. If you clear it in the top like 3 or 4%, the government will also give you this scholarship called the Junior Research Fellowship, where they will fund your doctoral studies with a monthly stipend. So, Lovish, I think, was someone that really. It's a very hard exam to clear. It's not as competitive as JE, but to get in the top 3 to 4% or 5% is not very easy. So congrats to you for doing that, and
Yes,
getting into IIT B. Now, this is the question I have. You are studying, like, IIT Bombay is the best university in India, through global rankings, world rankings. So now you are doing your PhD in the best university in India. So what is this life like at IIT Bombay? Why is IIT Bombay so special? And why did you choose IIT Bombay for your area of research? And what is your life been? I know you're in the early stages of your research. So, what is it like to be a researcher, a doctoral researcher at the best university in India?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great experience. First of all, getting into this, like IIT B Monash Research Academy. I'm a as you told me, I'm a joint research scholar of IITB and Monash University. So there is a 6 rounds of filtering that happens, and then you get in there. So besides you had cleared GRF, this is still a long process. So what happens is, you know, uh, the kind of environment that ITB provides is something that I think I have been into tier 2, tier 3 colleges as well, and then into this. So I really realized that what IIT does is really it has immense amount of resources for you. If you want to research, you have everything around you to look for. You have good seniors, you have good, libraries, you have good infrastructure throughout. I mean, whenever we live in hostels, so hostel charges are very minimal, specifically for PhD and master's students.
Right.
I mean, uh, in the same amount, I can't even afford yeah, I mean, I think 10 days stay, but I afford for the whole semester. So
Right.
that's a kind of difference that ITB, has. Uh, so it has a scenic view, first of all, landscape wise. So at one side of it has a Pavai Lake, and the other side of it has Samir Hills. And from my window and terraces, both are visible. So you can imagine the kind of scenic view that it has. It also pieces you up. And then besides that, I think what really differentiates ITB is the uh, besides the resources is of course the uh, environment that it provides. Other people like you are have done so much hard work and then they have come here. So all of that keeps you in inspiration. So I'm a part of. So PhD students have all the different channel to come in, but let's say we are a part of several clubs. For example, I'm a part of Team Zero Waste. That's a technical team of Institute Technical team of IIT Bombay, one of the teams. So now here we interact with the BTech students, and I realize that what kind of vision they have and what kind of uh, you know openness and for us, like someone like us, when someone is talking about patents, it's a big thing for us, right? And in our team, one person recently got the patent on his design, some design of a design patent, and he was just normally telling it, "Oh, patent mil gaya." So like, I'm just telling you the kind of motivation level and the skill set that people have, and getting to interact with those people, building your ideas in different domains. I'm in Team Zero Waste, so means how to make campus more sustainable. We are working on those ideas. There is a tech team that works on different kinds of tech-based ideas, for example, smart bins and you know making a kind of plastic extruder, which means 3D filament from a plastic waste, and sort of those projects are going on. At the other end, we as in the research and policy side, we are working on how to sensitize stakeholders, how to work out on work out with different stakeholders, and then reduce the waste in the campus. And there is also now a green energy and sustainability hub that has come up. So a lot of activities are happening inside. On a daily basis, what you get is a notification of some lecture or the other by experts from this university or that university is coming up and talking up. So whenever you wish to join, then it's all open for you.
So
And
is there like an app or something that all IIT students have that they get these
so
notifications?
basically, we get all the notifications at email. There is also an Insti app also, yeah. That also gives you access to insight services. So, for example, there is a buy and sell portal. There is a mess. So, to get the access of mess, you have to install that app in your phone, and then that app has a QR code which you show up to the mess, and then only you can get the food. So, those
So
kind of things.
as like a doctoral student, you can go attend lectures in any department or any like if you want to. Or
Yeah, so we have to just mail the professor that we want to sit to this course. The permit, we can get that course. We
very
can
nice,
sit in that course.
very nice.
So that is obviously something that we can do. I mean, subject that are of interest. Many people do that. My batchmates are even doing that. So uh, we have anyways to undergo 1 year of coursework. So there also we have some electives to pick. So there also we pick some interesting subjects that can really help us pursue our PhD studies. Besides that, there are a lot of things happening that you don't get much time to enroll in so much of courses. But PhD research in general, you have to keep yourself in.
What is
Besides that, I also play
that you,
cricket. I'm part of a hostel cricket team. So
oh,
today's a cricket match in the
no.
evening. So that is also one part. Yeah.
But like what subjects did you decide to study in your PhD electives?
So because my topic was on food supply chain, so idea is that I'm coming from an environmental science background, right? So for me, I know about circular economy, I know about environmental studies in general, but what I really don't know is how businesses and supply chain systems work. So what I really took was the courses like supply chain optimization, sustainable supply chain management, and the courses on business analytics, more to get a management orientation, because that was something that was missing from my background. So you see, coming from a science and education student to then to environmental sciences, which is an interdisciplinary one, and then into management side of things. So that transition obviously gives you a lot of knowledge, and at times it also overwhelms you that you have to transit make it smoother.
Yeah, I feel like there are so many technical skills that you need to also develop as a researcher that I think you need to learn, and it helps you understand the topic you are studying much better. Like, Lovish, for someone that doesn't understand your research or why you are studying this, like, you know, they often say that if you want to explain something to a fifth grader, can you explain what your complex like study or work is to a fifth grader, and can they understand it? So your research, like I was reading about, the larger topic that you are studying, circular economy, food supply chains. Can you explain this research to me by telling me the best possible output and the worst possible like output? Like, is there a country that is doing it really well? Is there a place that's doing it really well? What are they doing really well? Is there a place or situation where they're not doing it well? Why are they not doing it well? So can you explain that, the relevance of your research in a larger scale, to me in those like sort of words?
Yeah. So first of all, what does circular economy and food supply chain means is that, so first of all, let's talk about food supply chain, then I'll come to circular economy. So in food supply chain, it's basically intertwining processes of agriculture, then you have manufacturing, processing, retailing, consumption, and then end of life.
Mm,
So throughout from agriculture to the end of life, you call this as food supply chain.
got it.
So where movements of good is happening from one place to another, and then
Mm,
also there is a value addition at each stage. So this is called food supply chain. And now, if I have to talk about circular economy in general, which means that you have to keep resources in a continuous loop, which means that resources are not wasted. You use them as much as you can, so that environmental pressure is reduced. We have lesser pressure on our landfills, and we have lesser pressure on our lesser carbon footprints, and we have lesser emissions in general. So that is all the idea of circular economy. Now, when I'm talking about food supply chain, we have to apply this idea across different, you know, supply chain segments. So I talked about agriculture. So for agriculture, it would mean regenerative agriculture practices, organic farming. Then you have, there are certain certified farming practices which you see where, you know, uh, where nature is less harmed. For example, you have those seasonal fruit, seasonal growths. So, for example, if rather than relying on uh, storage perspective, you are growing seasonally and then selling it out. That is something called more circular because of the lesser requirement of storage and energy for that matter, refrigeration energy for that. And then we go into manufacturing. Then you have let's say plant-based alternatives for certain products, or if you are producing if you are running on a renewable energy and those sort of stuff. And this applies not only for food industry but for any other industry as well. And then there are certifications available, again ISO certifications, which you take and then you say that your environmental management is good. And then you have lesser emissions. You are taking control for the overall air emission as well when you are using those energy through boilers and stuff like that. When you come to transport, how can transport be circular? So in that context, we talk about how can transport be based on more renewable energy and more on electric energy. So electric is actually a mid source, but let's say if electricity in future is sourced by renewable energy, then electric EV vehicles are actually sustainable. So in that sense, you talk about that. And then green energy, green hydrogen, those sorts of idea come in the transportation part. And then you come to retail and warehousing also. So how can you make those sustainable? Where, first of all, let's eliminate the need of warehousing as less as we can, because seasonal food, if we choose, they are good for health. They don't require much storage. and also refrigeration requirements automatically reduces in that. But if we have to run for certain things, then because anyways food production is seasonal, but then uh, let's say for onions or any other things, you have to store it for the throughout the year. And how should those systems be optimized for better energy usage? And then lastly, you talk about retailing. So retailing in you talk about how can retail as a retail has an environment. So for example, if we are talking about big shopping malls, how can they optimize their energy consumption through sensor based technologies? And then also it is also about how retail can actually for example, those packing that they give to us, or the uh, behaviors that they nudge. For example, if we are retailers are really marketing the good products, sustainable products, that also something that can make a difference uh, throughout the supply chain.
Mm.
Then coming to the end user, how consumers react to it. So how consumers can make better choices, avoid impulse buying. That this 10-20 minutes orders, if they can wait a bit more, it can allow consolidation of orders, which means uh, you know uh, they can save on emissions. So for example, if instead of one trip, I'm bringing the goods of two persons rather than one person, that will save emissions, right? So those kind of ideas also come in when we talk about consumers. How do we segregate waste? Do we and then how does municipality take it up? That also to some extent come in that picture. And then so how we can overall make our lifestyle in such a way that overall environmental emissions are less. We demand for more. So all the sustainable practices that I taught from starting to now, consumers can always demand for them. And
Mm.
then if consumers start demanding for them, then the whole supply chain has to transform. So that's the whole idea that I'm working on. I'm currently actually working on something called the idea of circular food behavior, which means how can consumers impact uh, you know the emissions throughout the supply chain.
Mm.
So consumers start demanding organic products, consumers start demanding seasonal products, consumers wait a bit for orders, consumers start looking for certifications and eco labels. Consumers do go for sustainable retailing. So all those things that we are working on. And
So,
regarding the countries that are doing good, actually Europe in that sense has good legislation in place. Of course, one of the reasons is that it is developed,
yeah.
and also it has good strict norms in place. Recently, I think UK and Poland had some good amount of fundings for channelizing redistributed food, and so that means that food is not going to wasted, but it is actually going to uh, you know uh, it's actually going to people who can consume it. So in that sense, at last it also talks about in food circularity. We also talk about waste management, which means not only segregation but also recycling, also animal feed recycling. For example, the food that is cooked and served in the plate that is getting wasted, you can channelize it to either animal food or composting.
Mm.
Similarly, uncooked food can go to redistribution purposes. This also comes under circularity. And for Indian counterpart, I think we are still in the mid stage. We are currently, need to do a lot of work out there. But yeah, I think culturally we are good in terms of traditional culture that we have. And I think we are again going back to have started going back to those ideologies again. So this is good because millets, for example, or more of seasonal and local diets that are really not only useful for health and climate, but also for planet in general. So
Mm.
uh, because these millets, for example, are less water resource intensive also. So the current like green revolution that we had, wheat and rice production, so that actually has much more environmental impact as compared to the millets. These millets have varieties also, which means you are also working out on biodiversity aspects. So I think that.
Very nice. Like a lot to learn from your journey, Adam. And I think like some things you mentioned, like the article that I was reading to prepare for this interview, you mentioned how there are so many people that are hungry in the world, and yet there is so much food wasted at the same time. And I think that's such an unfortunate sort of dichotomy between what is available and why it's going waste. And I think the efficiency word that you mentioned is so important to understand, is how do you channelize the additional resources you have in more developed sort of sectors of society to the entire sort of spectrum in a large way. And not only thinking about it from that context, I don't think we only have good practices in tier one cities. Like as you mentioned, I think our traditional system has a lot of lessons to learn on how we can lead a sustainable life. Like I feel like in our farms, in our villages, the way we lead our life is often very sustainable.
True.
We create our own food. We are able to not waste too much. We use the waste product very efficiently. So studying some of those practices, I also believe, is a good model for people in urban spaces to understand, because I feel like in urban spaces we just assume that these resources will always be available, but I don't think that is always going to be the case in the long term. So I remember when I had gone to visit like Canada, and I was there for some time. There was an app that allowed you to uh, like all the restaurants could make an account on this app, and then
Mhm.
whatever food was left at the end of the day,
That
they
could
could
be distributed to other donation.
actually, they don't donate it, they actually sell it at a lower price
Okay, yeah.
to
Second.
any consumer. So all of us would often look at the this app and the restaurants near our house, and in the evening, if we wanted to eat something nice, and they would not tell you what is in the bag, it's just a bag with food.
Hmm.
So we would just go and they would tell us, this is the bag, it's for like $5, and this is what we have as waste today. And we were very happy because we were getting like nice restaurant food at a low cost. So I thought that was like an innovative way of looking
Yeah.
at that end of cycle sort of. So, like in India, like in terms of consumer behavior, what do you think are some of the main determinants of changing consumer behavior to something more sustainable? Like you mentioned organic produce, like there is definitely a cost variable to that
True.
you can't deny, and not everyone can afford like organic food. So what are like some things that you think will have the most impact to change consumer behavior in India in the long term?
Yeah, so I think for consumer behavior, as you told, cost is one of the barriers. So I think that will diminish slowly as we develop. I mean, as our income rises, and as our health concerns become more, you know, uh, more
Productive.
we are more concerned about health, then definitely this will happen. The other thing that is when we're talking about consumer behavior is also uh, you know how much we care, how much we observe. So if we are able to observe and see that kind of impacts that we are having. So in urban spaces, like we are very in flats and living in very close kind of environment. But when we really go out and check, see that those landfills, for example, you will realize that the people are really living near those landfills and just in neighborhood of that land, and how much they are really getting into, like how much pains, how much those odors and obviously diseases coming out of that. So that is one part. Sensitization needs to come in. Other thing that I feel is we uh, we become sometimes more self-centric, and then that's what create problems. To resolve this, I think regulation has to go stricter in any way, and then uh, the ideas have to come from bottom up. Means
Mm,
not as if the waste management rules has come. We have already those laws in place, but we have to really develop those laws out of the common discussions that we do. So for example, if there is some panchayat or there's some local ward member doing a kind of a talk with people, he I think these issues, if these issues are mainstream, then people will realize. Then people will you just ask people that, this is the problem. What should we do? This is happening. This is happening. This food is getting wasted, and this is impacting this many people. Many people are going hungry. What should we do? If the people are themselves now giving ideas, which means that they will themselves follow it now. So I think those kind of strategies need to be in place. That's why real focus on marketing and nudges come into picture. You know, Currently businesses are also not very much willing to, you know, go sustainable because consumers are not paying for it that much. But again, there is also a business side of it that sometimes businesses are charging overwhelmingly high with, if even if you account their cost, it's still much higher than, if you see organic product charged unreasonably high, but it almost, takes a, let's say only 1.5 or 2x, but they are charging 5x or 6x. So that is something that needs to be worked upon. Then I think crop wise, there is one problem with organic farming is that, it takes a lot of area to produce. So how can R&D happen in such a way that we can grow more in the lesser area? Because generally, if you use more fertilizers or more, so then you would have more yield. But in case of organic production, that is something that is a bit of contradictory, that it has lesser yield. But that needs to be worked out, I think. And gradually, when things get scaled up, things get to a level that it can be scaled up, I think that cost barrier will automatically go down. And then I think, so those issues will, uh, even I'm doing that study on, in fact, that matter only. So I'm still in the early stage, but what we are really working on is the theory called social practice theory, which talks about material, meaning, and things. So which means behavior depend on how much resources you have, uh, how much motivation you have, and then how much skills you have. So if these things are well focused upon, so these three things, so I think then we can really achieve the desired behavior.
Got it. And like for the, I think this is such an insightful discussion, Lovish. I think in a couple of years when we get to read your PhD thesis, I feel like we'll really get some more answers to this in a more clear, sort of concise way. But for the last question, Lovish, and what I will do is I will include Lovish's LinkedIn account and a couple of other talks and articles that he has already written in the show notes. So please do follow him on LinkedIn, and you can get in touch with him and understand his research better on that platform. He does share his work periodically on LinkedIn. And Lovish, for the last question, I'd like some recommendations from you. For someone interested in the area that you are studying, what are some books or some podcasts or some websites that they can review to understand this sort of space better?
Okay, so for circular economy, there is a podcast called Circular Economy Show by Ellen MacArthur Foundation. It's really good to get into the basic concepts of circular economy, and then they also organize expert discussions. That's one part about the podcast. And then there are a huge amount of environmental resources out there. I mean, naming one would be like undermining other, but you know, something on the lines of, let's say you even have sustainability now specific, those even of those who are interested in management side of things or business side of things. There are apps of McKinsey and Company, BCG, and other groups, so which periodically publishes their blog. Those blogs are nice point to get started, and also they have now started a separate column on sustainability. So they periodically write on sustainability issues as well. How will because fundamentally from a business perspective, these issues arise from a quite basic things. So for example, earlier we were anyways talking about supply chain disruption and resilience from in supply chains from quite a while. But then now, when the issue of sustainability comes, now unsustainability actually leads to disruption. So, for example, if let's talk about a food business. If climate change is impacting agricultural crops, It means the supply of agricultural produce is disrupted for a business. So it's in that discourse it is getting integrated, as the time goes. So I think being aware of those issues actually helps. Besides that, uh, you know reading more about these days ESG news is coming in. So ESG has a because companies are actually trying to practice these issues in real time. I think those can help. Yeah, for I mean journals you will go on later when you develop some sort of understanding, and then journals. Definitely, if you really start going directly into research paper, that is also a good option. But then you have to really mine into it.
Yeah.
You at first read you might not understand it well, but just read again and again, and then also try to find out the meanings of different concepts that they are talking about. Just if you have time, just try to mine it. One good research paper. I mean, there was one on food loss and waste by Spang in 2018, which was really written very nice in a very nice way, and it is published in annual reviews of environment. So these are all very good papers. I think, yeah.
Perfect. So, on that positive note, we end this episode of Learning Stories. You can reach out to Lovish on LinkedIn to understand his work and journey better. Thank you again, Lovish, for making time for this. And for the listeners tuning in, stay tuned for more such stories of amazing young Indians and individuals defining the future of their countries and the world. Until next time, keep learning.
Thank you, Abhishek.